Welcome to the Scaling SaaS podcast, sponsored by Zeno Digital Consulting Group, where we talk with founders and operators about building durable, scalable businesses. Today, I'm joined by Eric Duncan from DataBento. DataBento is building a modern infrastructure for financial market data, giving developers and quantitative teams fast, programmatic access to normalized historical and live market data. Eric brings a deep operator mindset to a highly technical space. And today we're going to unpack what it really takes to build and scale a product for sophisticated users in capital markets. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on. In our first conversation, I wasn't 100% sure what exactly, Data Bento did. So why don't you just, for the listeners and viewers, why don't you just give us the little high level overview of Data Bento and who's it for, and what exactly does it do?
Yeah, most certainly. And it's a very niche product, right? DataBento provides financial market data. So whenever someone is buying or selling a stock or a contract on a futures position, they're doing so on exchange venues, and they're doing so through different applications, through their brokerage, through entities like Robinhood or Webull or whatever trading application may be used. Um, all of those records are occurring in exchange venues. We are capturing all that data directly from the exchange venues and then making that data available to users through both our data portal as well as through APIs.
Yeah, I mean, I find that fascinating. It makes total sense, right? When you initially told me about it, I was like, oh yeah, duh. Like you have all, to your point, Robinhood and all these other things. They need to get their data somewhere. And so it makes sense that there are going to be companies out there that are going to specialize in something like that. Was were there was there is there a lot of competition? Was there a lot of competition? I mean, did you guys like see a problem that you needed to solve, or like how did Data Bento get started?
Yeah, most certainly. So our founders were previously founded a hedge fund, and the majority of our team has kind of done what we call working on the other side of the desk. So we've had to interact with other market data vendors. And from that, we kind of know where the shortcomings are, where the pain points are, and we're looking at data usage through an institutional lens. So whenever it comes to using data, whether you're within a hedge fund, an institutional asset manager, or if you're just a retail trader, there are certainly a large number of competitors out there. And in terms of which one's going to best fit your needs is kind of going to differ based off your desired access methods, your desired data sets. We all have different takes on kind of the quote best way to do it, but the ethos around Data Bento is that we have shaped the product and designed the product for institutional usage because that's the lens in which we are looking at this through. That's the background of our team. And we know the pain points of dealing with some of the larger legacy type data vendors. And that's really what we've set out to solve here.
These are not casual users. When you say institutional, like, can you give me an example?
Yeah. Most of the fun examples are going to be gated behind NDAs, in all honesty. Uh,
Sure.
we're in a world, in a marketplace in finance that is heavily secretive. But certainly there are some entities that are willing to be featured on things like our website that users can go check out. But imagine just a hedge fund that is looking to use the technology available today to develop models and strategies for transacting on financial markets. And that is who we're providing data for and to. And you can kind of see from that why it might be a little bit secretive because everyone's about guarding their edge.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine you also go after like FinTech startups, things like that as well.
Yeah, most certainly. There are a number of different use cases for financial market data. All of it comes down to what markets you're looking to interact with. And then are you going to use the data for transacting for your own personal use? Or are you going to use the data on behalf of your company or entity, like in the case of a hedge fund? Or are you going to externally redistribute that data? And that'll be, your brokerage or FinTech type platforms that are coming in to use the data to create products and systems that are able to be used by downstream users. Um, that's one of the fastest growing areas of the marketplace, I would say, just based on the continued prevalence of retail trading within financial markets today.
How does that change your product strategy when you have such different use cases? I mean, they all kind of similar, obviously. They're using the same data, but like how does that impact your product strategy when you have to support a fintech, you have to support a hedge fund, different,
Yeah,
different type of customers?
most certainly. On our side, whenever you design a product for institutional usage, that is going to be the most thorough use, the most demanding use. Um, as a reference point, if you look at US equity options, that goes through a data set called OPRA, which is the Options Pricing and Reporting Agency. There are 1.6 million instruments available to be traded on OPRA at any given time. This is terabytes and terabytes of data daily. So if you can design your product and the data feeds and the platform in such a way that you can provide access for the full Opera feed to an institutional client, as a byproduct of that, you're also going to meet the needs for your retail users who are just looking for um, a handful of symbols or just looking to use maybe less granular data. So we separate our data into things called schemas. Market by order is going to be the most granular. It is every order queued by order ID, not constructed into a limit order book. We offer
Wow.
level we offer level 2 data, which gives you like 10 levels of depth on either side of the bid and ask. Those are going to be used by more sophisticated users, whereas your standard user operating a fintech application may just want the minute or hourly bars for populating a chart.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense when you kind of build for the larger clients, that funnels down to some of the smaller ones as well.
Yeah, and each schema is kind of a subset of the prior schemas. So if you take the most granular, in our instance being market by order, you use that to construct a limit order book. The limit order book gives you the depth of book that many users are looking for. And so that 10 levels of depth on either side of the bid and ask, if you take that center slice, that's top of book or L1 data. That is going to be your best bid and offer, which is what many um, fintech type applications are looking to display to their users.
So does that so that makes sense from a product strategy. So what about from a sales motion? I mean, how are you guys handling that? Do you have different teams that handle like the fintechs versus the hedge fund guys? How do you guys deal with that?
It's a full team motion. So whenever a user reaches out to our team for support, we don't know if they're the head of a very large hedge fund or if they're just maybe a college student that's working on a project for their classes. And so from that, we respond to every user in the same way and providing them the same level of service. Obviously, our enterprise clients have some additional channels that can come through once they're our client, but if they're not our customer yet, they're coming through the website, and we are doing our best. A lot of our support is almost just education. So, in terms of go to market strategy, that's really a big portion of our go to market strategy is trying to provide value, because even if you're an expert trader that's worked, on the floor at exchange venues trading futures, you may not have a ton of experience trading U.S. equities, and their different data sets have different sources and different levels of complexity. So a lot of our go-to-market strategy is just education and trying to provide value.
That's with people that, I mean, the scenario that you gave, that was someone that was getting your data already. I mean, how do you get new, like how would you have found a new hedge fund client or a new
Yeah.
FinTech company, are you doing outbound? Like, are they coming to you based on ad? Like, how are you getting, how are people aware of you to
Yeah.
then buy your product?
Yeah. We have a, like most entities, we're partaking in a little bit of each of those. So we have an outbound strategy, but it's a very low touch type outbound strategy. You know, hey, we're DataBento. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it a little bit differently. If that'd be of interest to you and your team, let me know. I'd love to hop on a call. We're not, trying to beat down anyone's door and hound anyone to get them to come take a meeting with us. In our CEO has a phrase that I always quote, which is that data is bought, not sold. And so users really have to come to us and see, seeing is believing. And we have Google Ads, but there's things like we created a market microstructure guide, and that's been a big win for us. It's basically just trying to share value and education that we have around the market microstructure, and that really helps in terms of your SEO rankings and those things as it becomes more heavily used by clients to look up, hey, what was ATS? In the U.S. equities, or you can trade on ATS. So that's an alternative trading system, and that's reports to a TRF. Okay, well that's a trade reporting facility, and so breaking down all these acronyms, putting together a free for all type microstructure guide has been a big win for us, and certainly something I'd recommend to any business in any different niche market. Is the more you can help educate your client, the more informed they are to make an educated decision.
You're putting that stuff out there and just basically reaping the benefits of existing demand for that information because it's a complex topic. Obviously, all those acronyms, and so people are already out there looking for that info, and you've created this guide. It's a very typical strategy. You're right. I think I would recommend that as well. Adding value out there in the market. And so now you're reaping kind of the benefits from an SEO perspective because you're coming up in probably searches for those asks about those topics.
Exactly, and ultimately, I mean, it saves your company money on your Google ad spend as well,
Yeah.
because the higher you rank, organically, the less you have to spend to try to get your site up there in the results. And you know, there's a lot of niche terms in a lot of different markets, and even though we have the ability to type things more quickly than maybe we ever have prior, we're still leaning towards more and more acronyms. So if someone's coming into your industry and they're reading about these things for the first time, breaking down those acronyms to help them build familiarity is really going to help them best serve themselves.
Find are the biggest objections that you hear in those sales conversations. So someone, they download your guide and they're like, you know what, I need to call these guys and talk to them, actually a sales call. Like what type of objections do you typically hear in this space?
Yeah. When someone is comparing DataBento to other legacy type data vendors, the times when we lose are generally going to be because of coverage. In our space, you have Refinitiv, which is, LSEG, you have Bloomberg, you have a lot of these large legacy vendors that provide coverage of every venue out there. And we're not there yet. We provide coverage of US equities, some international futures, CME futures, ICE futures Europe, ICE Index, ICE US, Eurex and EEX. We're trying to take over the world one venue at a time, but we're not there yet. If you need some obscure market in APAC, I may have it next year, but I don't have it today. And if you're looking for a one-stop shop, I may not be the best source for you. So generally, when we lose, that's why. But in terms of an objection, that's more so a lack of product fit, right? But when you look at an objection, as with anything, I think price is always going to be one of the largest objections. And that's where you really have to build value around your product and say, hey, look, I'm happy to give you referrals to people that are offering similar data cheaper, but in our marketplace, there's no one offering equivalent products at or below our pricing.
Right? I mean, like So where do you stand out? So if coverage, so product fit issues with coverage, I mean, if there's a legacy, are, and this is just me trying to understand your
Yeah,
company and your business. So those things that you talked about earlier, those kind of data sets, I mean, Bloomberg has those, right? Or
yeah,
are you creating unique, uh, you know, like subsets or connections? Are you creating anything unique with the data that sets you apart, or is this just, yeah, we can get you this data, we can get you that data. Yeah, Bloomberg can get you that data too. We're cheaper. Like where do you guys stand out? Like why would I go with you for the same data set than Bloomberg?
yeah. That's a very good question. Um, on our side, we are, who knows what we'll be doing tomorrow, but as of today, we are not creating any unique data sets. These are all exchange captured data sets that anyone who's willing to set up the hardware and pay the license fees can also go access and capture.
Right,
What we're doing differently is really making the product easier to use, the data easier to access, and the data sets and platform easier to integrate. If Bloomberg may have the data, but trying to, many users may be familiar with the Bloomberg terminal, right? Try getting data out of that terminal into a model that you can apply modern tools to. With
gotcha.
AI continuing to grow in the marketplace, it's more available now for a standard user, just anyone, to try to build their own financial models. And if you're
Right,
using a Bloomberg terminal, it's really difficult to get that data out and into a model. And Bloomberg does offer, they have a service called BPipe, which is an API offering. It's just not quite as easy to integrate, not quite as intuitive. You know, our team has built out HFT trading desks. They know how they would like to interact with data, and that's shaped how we designed our product just for ease of use.
I definitely want to get to the AI question, but one last question on this similar topic. So what does your onboarding process look like? So do they get a customer success manager? Is it all just, hey, here, watch, here's the FAQs? Like, how do you guys handle onboarding? I mean, I would imagine this is a pretty technical, situation, so you might need some pretty solid hand holding.
Yeah, probably less than you'd think, in all honesty. Um, Whenever you are a user looking to onboard, we have built out really robust documentation with a ton of examples. You can come on to our site, sign up for a free account, go to our docs, click on an example, copy and paste it into a terminal using Python, and copy and paste that script over, and you're going to get data. So the time to first byte is something that we focus on a lot. How quickly can someone get signed up and get rolling to be able to access data? And we've done a really good job of optimizing that. I'm sure we'll find additional ways to make it even faster in the future. But building out that familiarity of, hey, I can just copy and paste this code over. All right, well, hey, this example was using open, high, low, close, 1 minute data. If I want to get trade data instead, I just change one line of code. And so it's, to get up and running with our data, it's 4 lines of code for most data sets. And
Wow.
yeah, really robust documentation, ton of examples. Our enterprise clients do have a little bit more handholding. They have, a dedicated representative to support them, but also our support team. Anytime you're on our website, you can click on the little chat icon. We have no AI chatbots. We have no random support people. Everyone you receive a response from when you reach out to us for assistance is an actual engineer that is building and maintaining the APIs. So you can provide very technical support right away. I see all these AI chatbots now on support for websites, and it's the modern day phone tree, right? But there's no way just to press zero and get to an operator. And I always liken it to having to defeat the AI chatbot just to get to a real person. And AI has its place. Whenever people are trying to give you money, people generally want to speak to people. So that's what we've done.
Fair. Um, do you guys use AI in the product, in the data bento? Is there any space for that? I mean, I would imagine, I mean, is there anything like normalizing data, or It sounds like it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's access to a database.
Roughly, yes, it's you're having to do it very quickly and normalizing a large amount of data across a lot of different schemas and those things. But we are not using AI much internally, in all honesty. Main reason being is that we're kind of like the plumbing, right? Whenever you have water, you can turn on a faucet, you can attach a sprinkler, you can hook up a pressure washer. There's lots of things you can get water to do. That's all things that our customers and clients do. Our job is to make sure that whenever you turn on that faucet, that the water's there and flowing.
Yeah. I mean, that there's really not a lot of need for that. What about like when you say internally, so within the product, what about inside the company? Like, are your teams, it's obviously I talk to a lot of people, and I was talking to a CTO the other day. I've mentioned this before on previous episodes. Um, when they hire someone new, it's they provision a laptop, they get their email account, and they get their this guy was ChatGPT, right, or Claude or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like so, and this was, I mean, he was the CTO, so he was, he was referring to developers, but I think it states a point that it's becoming so ubiquitous for knowledge workers to use, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, that it's literally just becoming um, the same as email, right?
Yeah.
You get a job, you get your laptop, you get your email, and you get your your AI account. Is that similar to what you guys are doing, or how are you guys using it internally?
Yeah. I think we've had a lot of our employees have tested different versions. So whether that be Claude or GPT or whatever it may be. Personally we our client libraries are only in Python, C++, and Rust. And we've had customers reach out that, hey, I want to use Java, I want to use, you know, Golang, whatever other language there may be. And I've used that to help build some additional examples to where, hey, here's this example we have in Python. How can I convert this over to Go or to use this, whatever other programming language the client's using? And so I've used it to test some things like that. It's getting better every day. It's still requires some interventions. I definitely see a lot of use cases around like intranet type things. We have a lot of internal processes that, we have one member of our team who knows everything about how our billing processes work. And we've talked about how we have to protect him at all costs because if anything happens to him, there's a lot of things that he's tried to document. He's forgotten more than we'll ever know about the way our systems are organized on the billing side. So being able to document those things and have quick access. Hey, how do I issue a credit to a customer? Hey, a customer signed up for the wrong plan. How do I switch their plans on the backend system? There's a lot of opportunities there that we're exploring. Um, Additionally, around our marketing, around design and display, being able to reuse the same concepts over and over very quickly. I know Figma's built in a lot of AI different tool sets that can be utilized. So it's being experimented with throughout our organization. But again, due to the nature of our business, we're very limited on what we can put into AI.
The documentation use case that has come up multiple times, and it feels like that's the easiest one, right? It's a natural use case for an LLM, right? Just train it on all your internal docs, give a chatbot to a department or whatever, and now they can quickly just get some of that data, that information that I knew at one point, but I don't do it every day, so I've forgotten how to do that credit request or whatever,
Yeah.
and so you can just ask it a question and it gives you the exact process. That's definitely the lowest hanging fruit that I've seen in most companies, like kind of starting out, especially ones that are trying to be a little bit more cautious with the use of it. That seems like a no-brainer. It's your own data, like it's internal,
Yeah.
no issue. Um, I've definitely talked to other companies that are like just super AI first. So I'm just curious, what about like you mentioned marketing, but what about like in sales? I mean, is your sales team, are they using it for maybe prospecting or prospect research or lead qualification or scoring or anything like that? Because that one's another one that's kind of popping up a lot with
Yeah.
forecasting, lead like opportunity scoring, forecast scoring, those kind of things. I've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah. I definitely think there's a place for AI in lead scoring. Seeing how XYZ client may meet your potential, good fit client that you've already defined. Um, Part of the issue with us is that in our industry is we're not going to be able to submit a list of who our current clients are to AI unless we're running, we'd have to do some pretty significant protections there to make sure that we're compliant. Um, so that makes it a little difficult. Whenever it comes to communication, you know, I, we're hiring for a number of roles, and I can always tell when a applicant is using AI to write their messages for them, which is tough because I know that GPT can use perfect grammar every single time. I care more about how effectively the person sending me the message can communicate rather than how well they can use AI to draft an email. How well can they just communicate person to person, especially in sales, being able to talk to people and speak candidly and quickly, and being able to, the thing that AI is, in my opinion, worst at is telling you when it doesn't know. And in sales,
It'll
that's
never,
probably one of the most important things.
yeah, it'll never tell you that it doesn't
Yeah.
know something. It'll come up with something or, um, because I've been, testing it in a lot of different ways and it's that typical like great idea, Brad. Like let's, like I'm not trying, I'm not here to get pat on the back because of my idea. I want to try to figure out if this is a good idea or not. Like you're
Yeah.
assuming it's a great idea, and I'm like, I don't know if it's a great idea. Let's pressure test this thing. And they're like, oh, that's fantastic. That's the direction you need to go. And and you're just like, dude, we need to like tamp it down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, from my sales team, if they don't, we're in a very complex industry. And many times the people that my team might be meeting with are going to have a higher level of knowledge than themselves. You don't want
Yeah,
to be the one arguing the computational strategies of Greeks with a quantitative engineer with a PhD in mathematics. It's okay to
yeah,
say, hey, I don't know. Let me
yeah,
take this back to my team and get back to you once I have some better information. And it's okay to say, hey, I don't know. Can you tell me more about that? And AI stifles that a little bit, where it'll respond to something right away with the assumptions it has. And it may not uncover the deeper question behind the question because it's so
yeah.
eager just to answer.
Yeah, for sure. I saw something pop up on Twitter the other day. It was a test between Grok and ChatGPT, and it said, I'm going to the car wash. It's 100 meters away. Should I drive or should I walk? And ChatGPT didn't get it. It was like, oh, it's 100 meters. Like, there's no reason to drive. Like, just walk.
Yeah.
And Grok actually inferred correctly, and it was almost kind of, and this is, I think, Elon, programs this in. It was a little kind of snarky about it. It was like, well, you're going to a car wash, so I'm assuming that you want to wash your car, so drive, idiot. Like that was kind of the response, and it was interesting to see that ChatGPT just missed it. Like it was fair, like any human would obviously be like, oh, well, you should drive, right? You're going to the car wash. But it
Yeah.
didn't get it, right? To your point, it didn't get that layer below what was actually happening in that statement. And it just focused on that surface level, what's the distance?
Yeah. It reminds me very much of, hey, Brad, go to the grocery store later, get a gallon of milk. If there's eggs, get 12.
Right, exactly.
You come back with 12 gallons of milk, which
Right.
from a LLM standpoint makes sense. There were eggs. I brought 12.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. A
That's right.
human would realize that maybe you meant I need to get 12 eggs and only 1 gallon of milk. And so
Right.
they're getting better all the time.
They really are.
Yeah. My spelling is horrible. I'm not great at spelling. And sometimes I can use help on the grammar side. So whenever I'm responding to an RFP where the grammar and those kind of things in your presentation is going to be more important, I may run some paragraphs through GPTs to help with my tone, help with my, the way I'm looking to communicate something. And
Yeah.
it's wonderful for that. And the hard part is going to be that you're not going to know which model to use because it's going to be built into everything you're using anyways. So we're going to have a ton of different models all built into, your email client, or to, we use Grammarly as a plugin at times. So it's things like that that AI is already built in there, and it's doing a great job at those things. I really like interacting with AI when I can't tell the AI is there.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I suck at spelling and grammar. It's literally my worst thing. And so I've been using Grammarly for a long time. That's, to me, that use case is very helpful. Just popping up. It's very seamless, just kind of shows you, oh, you might want to change this. You might want to change. You don't have to do any, motions or whatever. It's very built in, with the plugin and all that. I find that extremely useful. I was joking with someone the other day because you're right. Like all of this stuff is now built in. Like I can like my I use Google Workspace for
Mm-hmm.
for use that here at the company for all of our email, and that's obviously they've been adding Gemini features, over time, and it's like it'll write the responses for you for emails, and so like I wonder how many emails have gone back and forth where it's literally just AI talking to AI because they keep having AI write the response and they're like there's like not an actual human writing these emails, and so we literally just have kind of robots basically sending information back and forth to each other. It's like I wonder how, I doubt it's happening all that much right now, but I wonder in the future how that's going to work.
We're seeing it already. I mean, people are, we've recently seen agentic data purchasers, right? You have an agent you're employing. Hey, here's the data I need. It goes and finds it and brings it back to you. So we're seeing, inbound chat requests saying, hey, do you have this? How can I buy it? And it's many times an AI agent or bot that we're communicating with to tell them how to do something. And
Yeah.
similarly, an end user that isn't a developer may present as if they were a developer because they're copy and pasting, our responses into GPT, copy and pasting GPT's response back to us. Or many times we're like, hey, can I talk to your GPT directly? There's no need for you to be the middleman.
Right. That's no, I'm really fascinated to see just where all this goes. I mean, there's definitely limitations to LLMs, and I think that's what a lot of people are seeing now is, yeah, there's a lot of cool things that it can do, but there's definitely limitations long term to what it can do. So it'd be interesting to see how it's going to evolve. Um, yeah, we're actually close to out of time. We're actually already a little out of time. Let me just kind of close it down with a couple more questions for you. Um, Scaling a product like this, that's kind of what the podcast is called, Scaling SaaS Podcast. So I'm always interested to hear about, from beginning to where you are now, like scaling a product like this. What do you think like is the hardest part of scaling a product like DataBento because it is such a deeply technical SaaS product? I mean, although the way you've described it today, it actually sounds pretty straightforward, but I'm sure there's a lot of technical issues in there. So what did you find is or what do you guys find is maybe the hardest part of scaling such a product like DataBento?
Yeah. Um, we have products that are relied upon by financial institutions and end users alike to make financial decisions. So it has to be bulletproof, has to work all the time. Reliability, if you can't trust the product, you're not going to have users. And that's the big thing in our industry is trust. So we try to build a very robust system. And I liken it to if you're having a barbecue on Friday and you've got 10 people coming over, it probably makes sense to have food for 12. You never know if some extra person's going to pop through. Somebody may be a little hungrier than you might anticipate. And always rather have a little extra food left over than not have enough. And the same thing goes for building systems. whenever it comes to bandwidth to serve your clients, make sure you always got a little bit more than you can forecast needing. We're
Yeah.
providing data, and as we liken it to fire hoses or traffic on a highway, you have to have enough lanes to ensure that there's no backups. And from that, staying ahead of the curve helps. It's expensive. For us, every time we have to onboard a new server because we know that we want to be able to handle an X% increase in customer load, it's expensive to do. It's expensive to get set up, but you have to really invest in the infrastructure to be able to support your users so that they can trust and rely on you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was actually one of the things when I worked at VMware. I mean, that was one of the having having your infrastructure on virtual machines was one of the huge benefits. Kind of being able to spin up and spin down based on traffic and need. One of our biggest use cases was retail companies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
basically go this for 9 months out of the year, and then they just jack up during the holidays, but they can't really afford to have hardware infrastructure that matches that top peak level for only 3 months, and it just essentially sits idle for the next nine. And so being able to kind of spin up those machines really easily for that was a huge use case for us.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, as the title to the podcast mentions, if this is about scaling, you've got to stay ahead of that scale. So wherever your forecasted curve is, if you hit a point where your site's down because we're overwhelmed by customer demand, well, that can be tough if you're a product that people rely upon for things. So just staying
Yeah,
ahead and making sure that you're meeting customers' needs.
yeah, for sure. All right, one last question. What is one metric that you personally kind of obsess over?
Hmm. Trying to dial it down to one metric. Oh, that's a tough question, Brad. There's so many good ones out there. We're a data company. You want to talk
Right.
about metrics. I've got all the metrics, and they all matter. Um,
Sure.
if I had to say one that matters for enterprise institutional type users, it's going to be uptime.
Yeah.
Uptime is going to be the biggest one. On the sales focus, I think conversion is the biggest one because if you know that for every four customers you meet with, you get a contract that's worth 20,000. Well, every single meeting you take is worth 5,000. It's just a numbers game to be able
Yeah,
to, increase your demand, increase your top of funnel so that you can get to close business.
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, so we're definitely way over time. I really appreciate it, Eric. This has been a fascinating discussion. When we first talked, I mentioned this earlier. It's like I didn't even realize like companies like this even existed, right? But it makes total sense. Like you got to get data from somewhere, um, and the people that are going to give it to you the easiest and the fastest and the cheapest are the ones that people are going to go with. So this has been pretty enlightening for me. I really appreciate your time.
Brad, thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and speak about DataBento and the things that we're building and accomplishing today. So, as always, if your users want to check us out, it's easy to find us, just databento.com. And again, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad.